But in this case, I don't want to just squash it for an effect. I want to compress it, like I said, to even out the volume, and I'll show you why. So I want the threshold to be set where I'm only seeing -3 to -6 dB gain reduction. I don't want it to be too much compression. Let's take a listen.
Downpour on my soul, splashing in the ocean, I'm losing control.
So, that's fine. And my ratio is 3 to 1. A good lead vocal ratio can be anywhere from 2 to 1, 3 to 1, even 4 to 1. But, try 2.5. That means you're not going to be squashing it so much that people can hear it. Like, what's happening to it? And then the only other things you really need to worry about right now is attack and release. Now, attack is just a word that means how fast do you want the compressor to kick in, okay? It knows to kick in when any of the vocal hits this volume level. And when it does hit that volume level, it knows to compress it at a ratio of 2.3 to 1. But attack tells it, do you want it to kick in like less than a millisecond? Or do you want it to be hundreds of milliseconds? You see what I'm saying? Do you want the compressor, do you want to hear the vocal and then it starts to compress it? Or do you want the moment this compressor sees anything coming past the threshold to just slam down hard? And that's going to affect the sound. Let's take a listen.
Downpour on my soul, splashing in the ocean, I'm losing control. Dark sky all around.
Do you see that? It's really slamming down when I have the attack here. It's going to be slamming down. It's going to catch every peak. All right. So you just want to adjust that to taste to what you hear. There's no rules here. Okay. There's people that say you can have certain starting points and those are great, but there's no rules. Just try something. If it's a snare drum, you probably want to have the attack not be too high because you want to let the actual hit of the snare come through, but you'll use a compressor maybe to thicken out the tail end of the snare. And we'll look at that in another video. But right now, just know that that tells the compressor when to kick in, how fast to kick in. And the release does the exact opposite. It tells the compressor how quickly do you let go of the compression. Do you let go right away or do you give it some time? Let's take a listen.
Downpour on my soul, splashing in the ocean, I'm losing control.
Do you see that slow gain reduction? That's because I've told it to have 4 seconds to release. It's as if someone is holding your head down underwater, and that's the gain reduction. And the release tells how slowly to let us back up. I mean, if it's quick, then it can jump back and be ready to compress the next peak. So you generally don't want a really slow release. That's really rare. But again, these two knobs, attack and release, will affect how fast the compressor kicks in and kicks off. All right? Knee, you don't have to spend too much time on this, but knee is how deep of a slope. How smooth does it compress it down? But honestly, I wouldn't mess too much with this for now. For most purposes, I rarely touch it. The only other main knob I want you to understand for basic compression is gain. And this can be gain boost or they can label it whatever. But basically, when you compress, you're reducing the volume of these peaks, right? So that they're going to be as quiet as the quieter peaks. But then the point of the compressor isn't just to make everything quieter. It's to make everything usually louder. So you do that by reducing the dynamic range, turning down these peaks. So now you have a nice, even audio file. And then you can bring up the overall gain of the entire track. Let's take a look.
Downpour on my soul, splashing in the ocean, I'm losing control. Dark sky all around.
You see that? It's maybe not as loud as the peaks, but what that's done is brought these quieter parts up to be as loud. Let's take a listen.
Downpour on my soul,
Bypass.
splashing in the ocean, I'm losing control.
This losing control, that's a loud part, but that's not sounding any louder or quieter with the compressor on or off.
Control, control, control.
It's not much different, but the words right before it I'm losing. That got louder.
I'm losing.
You see what we're doing here? A compressor is allowing us to bring up the quieter levels to match the peaks. So it's a consistent volume. And that gives a certain sound. You may not want that sound, but that's very common. So if that's what you're looking for, a compressor is a great way to do it. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to see these basic commands and what they do. It's going to look different on your compressor. Some compressors only have 2 knobs, all right? But if you're learning compression, start with a compressor that shows you threshold, gain, attack, release, and ratio, okay? Make sure you got those commands. Don't go with like, 1176 or something like that only has input output. We'll look at those in another video perhaps, but for basic compression, I want you to understand what you're doing enough to just start making music, all right? And a little tip, if your compressor has presets, this one does, these are fantastic, but all the presets are really gonna do, like snare compression, really, you can ignore the gain and threshold. They don't know how loud your snare is. They don't know what gain you need it to be. All it's really doing is changing these settings to what they think is a good starting point for a snare. The type of ratio, the type of attack or release. So it's great to start with a preset because you'll get these where you need them. That's how you learn. But you're going to have to adjust the threshold and the gain to suit the material that's coming through the compressor, okay? Every time, you'll always have to. But then you can look at what they say, oh, that's what they recommend for a snare, and then you can adjust it from there and see what you like. Does that make sense? Well, guys, thanks for listening to me in this raspy voice go on about compression. I hope this is helpful to you guys. We'll do another video on compression, so stay tuned for that. Again, guys, thanks for checking out the site. Thanks for your emails and your feedback. Let me know on YouTube or let me know here on therecordingrevolution.com what you're wanting to learn about, what questions you have. I'll try to incorporate that in a video tutorial in the future. But that's it for now, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you later, kids.